welcome to our Hindu Academy e-learning course Q&A session. We meet every Saturday at 12 o'clock UK time. And what we'd like to do today is we are going to be talking about Module 10. And with us today, we have got Vijay Hirani, who will be taking us through the course on this particular section. Vijay, welcome and over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nishit Bhai. Okay, so just a couple of things to know is that I'll just go through, I think the IGCC, how it's arranged, so you get an idea of what the paper is about. So what you have for the Cambridge IG syllabus, you have two papers, and they're both out of 60 marks, and they're 1.5 hours long. So paper one is basic, and a lot of paper two is already covered in the first part of the course. You did 1 to 8. I'm just covering the extra stuff you have to learn on top of that. So in effect, the paper one has got 3 sections. So one section is gods in Hinduism, mainly about Vishnu, Shiva, Trimurti, Shiva, Durga, Kartikeya. So Kartikeya we will cover a little bit, yes, because that we have not covered. And that's basically then the gods and what they look like, what kind of artifacts they hold, what is the symbolic meaning behind it. Also, you have learned about the stories of God, some stories, and then you can use that in exam. They might ask you for examples on, give me one example of a story on which explains the power of Vishnu or stuff like that, yeah. And you can bring this to, then that's one section in paper one. Section 2 is about the avatars of Vishnu, purely on avatars, and you have to focus really only on 4 avatars. And the 4 avatars are basically, you have Narsi avatar, Vaman avatar, Krishna and Rama avatar. And so those notes, I think we can give some notes on this. But this is basically 4. And we have covered some of them already in the paper 1 again. So that's section 2 in paper 1. The last section in paper 1 is about festivals, basically Diwali, Holi. Again, you have covered that in paper 1. So basically paper 1 is kind of covered. You can check the notes anyway from the, what do you call, it's already covered in the 4 modules 1 to 8. Now paper 2 is a bit different. So in paper 2, again, you have the same. You have 3 sections. Oh, sorry, by the way, I forgot to explain that. In the 3 sections, you have each section is out of 20 marks. And how it works is that in 20 marks, you have 4 questions in one section. You have a 2-mark question, a 3-mark, a 5-mark, and a 10-mark question. You have these 4 questions set up. So again, you have an alternate choice. Say in section 1, you have 2 choices of 20 marks. You can choose either option 1 or option 2. So they actually give you an option. Say you're not strong in one topic, you can choose the other topic, yes. So the paper is designed, so you have a total of 6 questions, 2 questions in every section. So every section has got 2 marks, 20 marks, and these sub-option, either option can be chosen. And one option, you have 4 questions. So you can see this if you go on the Cambridge ICC board, you can download the papers, 2055. They have so many papers, also have mark scheme, also examples of what they want in the answers. And I think for 1 to 8 is fairly straightforward, yeah. For paper 1 is fairly straightforward. Now paper 2 is again the same setting. You have 3 sections. Every section is 20 marks each. And for every section, you have 2 alternatives. You choose one or the other. You can't mix and match. If you choose one, then you have to do all the question 1, which is 20 marks. And the same again for paper 2 and paper 3. So paper 1, section 1 for paper 2 is purely on the scriptures, which is the Upanishads, Gita, and the Ramayana, which you have kind of covered. Section 2 is on living a Hindu life, basically the 4 Purushars, the Samskars, also the Varnas, and the ashram system. Again, that's covered in paper 1 to 8. Section 3 is personalities, where you could learn 4 personalities, which is what I'm covering. So again, I'll just go through again once more. Paper 1, 3 sections. Gods, avatars, festivals, that's paper 1. Paper 2, scriptures, Hindu life, living a Hindu life, and personalities, and that's it. Living a Hindu life has got the 4 Varnas, the 4 ashrams, the samskars, again, they especially focus on 4 samskars, and the 4 purushars, which basically dharma, earth, kama, moksha. And that's the sections we have. So these are already covered in 1 to 8. It's only purely section 1 of paper 2 and section 3 of paper, which is really focusing on. So section 1 is kind of finished. I think the Gita is left, which Dilip will hopefully cover. And in section 3, the personalities, last week I covered Gandhi, and this week I'm going to cover Ram Mohan Roy, which you can see in my virtual background. And then you also have Ramakrishna Paramhans and then Saraswati. So as I mentioned last time, the way they've chosen those 4 personalities are basically seen as reformers or influences of how Hinduism is modernized or kind of evolved in the last 2 centuries. That's the whole idea of bringing these personalities in. So what they have done, they've actually chosen 2 personalities from Gujarat, which is Gandhi and Dayanand Saraswati, and 2 from the other side of India, which is West Bengal, which is Ram Mohan Roy and Ram Mohan Roy and Ramakrishna Paramhans. Now, as I mentioned last time, the way I see it, I think I would say only 2 are really religious figures. Other 2 are reform. Ram Mohan Roy is a reformer, and Gandhi, I think, is just a big influence on people's lives and how they kind of evolved in how they saw their religion or how they saw kind of cultural aspects, how they evolved, like things like, satyagraha, ahimsa, and how those ideas were instilled in kind of modern Hindus from the time of his life. Yeah. So I won't focus on Gandhi anymore, which we covered last week. So today we're going to focus on Ram Mohan Roy, who is a reformer from Bengal. Now, so he's actually, not many people have heard of him. I mean, a lot of people from Bengal, yes, but generally, I think outside Bengal is perhaps not as well known. But let's study his life today. It's quite interesting, his life, yeah. So basically, Ram Mohan Roy was born in August 14, 1774. There are some, if you look at some resources on the internet, they'll give different dates. They'll say May something, 1772. But I think by and large, I think people agree that it's August 14th, 1774. So he was, out of the 4 personalities we're learning, he was kind of the earliest, yeah. So basically, Ram Mohan Roy was really, he was born actually in Bengal, I think near Hooghly, in the Hooghly district, in a small village called Radhanagar village, yes. Regarding his life, he was actually, his father was a very wealthy Brahmin and very strict orthodox kind of Brahmin as well, yes. So doing everything strictly and following all the beliefs strictly. At that time, it was quite popular that, a lot of young children, when they go in their early teens, they want to become a monk. So even Ram Mohan Roy, when he was 14, he said, "Look, I don't want to live a normal life anymore. I want to become a monk." But as usual, like all moms, she was totally opposed to the idea of Ram Mohan Roy becoming a monk. So obviously, what the best medicine is? If somebody keeps on dreaming about becoming a monk, it's basically getting married. Yes, that's the best way of doing it. Yeah. So anyway, but anyway, having said that, Ram Mohan Roy already had a child marriage in those days at the age of 9. But of course, they don't live together in those days. So, but then his wife actually died quite early. So then he had a second marriage. In the second time when he was born, he kind of he had 2 children as well, 2 sons. But again, his second wife also died. So he made a third time, and the third wife kind of outlived him basically. Yeah. So that's his kind of his basic kind of life. Yeah. But let's see a bit more about Ram Mohan Roy. So when he was older, he was actually sent off to Patna in Bihar to study Persian and Arabic. Now, I don't know if you know, but I think most of you might know already is that in those days the Mughals were still in ruling many of the lot of Islamic kingdoms, and the Mughal kind of kingdom was kind of the biggest at that time. And Persian was the language of the courts. So it's very popular to use Persian for some. I think because of historical reasons, Persian was the court language. So he thought that if I learn this Persian, it'll help me kind of improve his career opportunities. And also Arabic was in high demand for, I guess, again, because of the Mughal kind of ruling at that time. So while he was studying Persian and Arabic in Patna, he also studied the Quran and the Islamic scriptures. And after he finished his studies in Patna, he actually went off to Banaras. In Banaras, he studied what do you call the Sanskrit, and he was a very clever guy actually. I mean, within I think even before he was just past his teens, 20, 21, He actually kind of learned all the Sanskrit and also learned the scriptures, the Vedas, the Upanishads. So he was quite already a master in this at a very young age. So he was very kind of studious in studies and very focused, yes. And then, of course, at that time, the British East India Company was very big in India. So he also learned the English language. And by the age of 22, in 1 or 2 years, he also learned the English language. That's how kind of strong he was. So that's a bit on his, basically, bit on his life. Now, after he finished his studies, I mean, at that time, when you're 20, 21, you're already fairly old, 22. So he had to get a job. Luckily, because of the English skills, he actually got a job in East India Company. And pretty soon after starting off as a clerk, he pretty soon he moved up, and very soon he became a divan, basically a native tax collector on behalf of the East India Company. But that was just his kind of his life. But what he could see in India, or at least in Bengal state, he was very disturbed by what he was seeing in his own state. And some of the things he was struggling with was the idea that some of the very basic kind of very antique, archaic, cultural kind of practices India had at that time, or at least Bengal had, also all of India, I think. So the main thing was this, that he saw that a lot of the things people are doing, especially his own Brahmin caste, were very strict and very kind of strict moral codes, but largely modified for their own benefit. And because by now he had studied the scriptures and the Vedic scriptures, he knew that a lot of the stuff which was being practiced was actually very bad interpretation of this ancient scriptures and tradition. And some of the things that really disturbed him, which I think was a big issue at that time, one was the idea of child marriages. And funny enough, to not make it look bad, they used to call it Gauri Dan. Gauri Dan is, like the donation of Gauri is another name for Parvati, yes. So it's called it Gauri Dan. Polygamy was an issue as well. And so was Sati. Sati was quite prevalent in Bengal state. Now we're talking about 17, maybe starting with the 1800s, yes, at that time. But of course, the worst was the Sati Pradha thing, was really bad. Now, unlike the answers which you'll learn later on, see, because he's already working with the British East India Company and he was quite conversant in English and also was very well read, so he kind of used the legal route to how to change society. So what he did was he actually, although he spoke up against his ideas in his general public or within his friends, but that wasn't good enough because some of these ideas were so deeply entrenched. And at that time, the Brahmin caste and so-called the Kulin Brahmin were very, very strong and very kind of very strong in community and a lot of power. And to change anything was really hard. So, in effect, what he did was he actually said, okay, what I will do is I will use the legal route. So, in effect, he actually talked to the higher ups in the East India Company and said, look, something has to be done about this. This has to be changed. We can't keep on having this. So, with a lot of reasoning, perseverance, ultimately his word reached the General Governor, or Governor General at that time, Lord William. And of course, he sympathized a lot with him, Roy's sentiments, but he had to face the immense force of the Orthodox community. But eventually, through a lot of perseverance, he would not give up. Raman was very stubborn like that. Yes, he actually managed to pass the Sati regulation. Yeah, at that time, I think 1829, he passed it, and for now, he's establishing law that if anything takes place, somebody gets punished. And I think that was the only way he could really do it, I guess, at that time. So for the first time, he became really popular because his name was linked to this particular law. And from then on, he actually went further. He managed to get people to pass the laws against the idea of child marriage, polygamy, and also he fought for equal rights of women, including equal inheritance rights. So these are things he did. And then, of course, after that, he was also kind of fighting against the caste system, similar like Gandhi. But all that is well and good. The thing is that, okay, you pass a law, you do all that. But if it doesn't have kind of the local force, like the force that the priests have or the pujaris have, or the kind of samaj or the community have, it's still not enough. So at last he said, okay, look, I have to do a bit more than this, yeah? So anyways, what he did was that he realized there's a couple of things he has to do. One is, how do I remove all these deeply entrenched archaic beliefs in Hinduism, which are really prevalent and really enforced? How do I change that? And the other thing that he faced at that time was quite severe, was that by now a lot of the English missionaries had come to India and really missionarizing the public to become Christian. And of course, the thing about Christianity and even Islam, which is a kind of a, I would say maybe is a good or bad, I don't know, but because it's benefit, they have a idea of believing in a single God and a single book and a simple and clear cut. And that was the kind of force he was dealing with. Now we don't know for sure whether he, although he mastered the Vedas and the, the Quran and all the even the Bible, he came up with a new idea that we have to change and modify Hinduism in a different way. So what he did was a couple of things. So he said, okay, now what do I do here? So he said, okay, let me start a new movement, which is what he did. And the new movement was called something called the Amitya Sabha. And the beliefs they had in many ways are very linked, are very much linked to what you call the uh, monotheism. So he said, look, actually, he said, if you look deeply in the Vedic scriptures, Hinduism is a monotheist religion. It's not a pluralist religion, it's a monotheist, because the Upanishads only talk about the idea of Atman and Brahman. And he said that the idea of idol worship is not really part of Hinduism, which is in a way true, because the Upanishads don't talk about the idea of image worship or murtis. Yeah. So his idea of monotheism in a way was very similar to the other religions, that there's only one God, that there's idol worship should not be allowed. Yes. But anyhow, he still said that the Upanishads were the scriptures of India. So there are some people, if you look at some of the notes or biographies on that, they claim that he was greatly influenced by the what do you call it, by the Christianity and Islam, and that's why he brought this reform in Hinduism. He wanted them to look like that because of quite very very attracted to those religions. But we do not know for sure. The thing we can say for sure is that he actually stuck to Hinduism and Upanishads when he was talking in his sabhas. Yes, so that's the thing he kind of did to try and reform society. He said, look, all these traditions, all these cultural aspects, those are they are very secondary. You should really focus on them. We should have a lot of respect for philosophy. And also, he said something else interesting, was that look, that's all well and good. I've done this monotheism, Upanishad, that's all good, no problem. But how do I still modernize society with all that? So, what he said, look, while it's very good in philosophy, how do I bring idea of knowledge in there? So, basically, said we have to have some sort of also scientific knowledge and rational reasoning. So, what he did was, for the first time, he said, look, I have to do more than that. So, he actually opened a first Hindu college in 1817, very early. He opened the Hindu college in 1817 in Bengal. Now that again with he had a very big supporter in the name of David Hare, who was a contributor at that time. I think he was also educator in India at that time, maybe even part missionary, because all of the education teachers there were partly missionaries. But anyway, so he opened the first college there, and for the first time he managed to get girls to get education. And the thing is kind of based on the English system, but also taught Sanskrit and also Indic studies as well. So for the first time, he introduced mathematics, physics, chemistry, and other kind of botany, agriculture. So this is one of his big attempts to change kind of India society. And I hear today, even today, is one of the leading colleges in India, the Hindu College of Bengal at that time. So these are a couple of things he did. And after that, he established again further schools. So another school he established was the Anglo-Vedic school in 1822, followed by another college called the Vedanta College to study Upanishads and scriptures. So the idea was that how do I go to the roots of Hinduism and yet get these modern ideas in and modern doctrines? So it's a bit of a challenge for him at that time. So all this work he did was to kind of expand and somehow subconsciously or consciously percolate his ideas into the wider society. That was the main aim of kind of what you call a Ram Mohan Roy. Anyway, so going back, what you can see is that his sabha became slowly became more and more popular. And that was the seeds, let me say. So first from the Amita Sabha, it became the Brahma Sabha. And later on, I think after he's kind of passed away, it became the Brahmo Samaj. And Brahmo Samaj is very popular because some of um, great leaders in Bengal said Tagore, also Keshav Chandra Sen, they're all kind of members of the Brahmo Samaj at that time. This is now much later on, yes. But the seeds were sown by Ram Mohan Roy of the Brahmo Samaj. And it's kind of a new movement. So after slowly it kind of picked up. I know at the time of Keshav Chandra Sen, which is about nearly 50 years after, maybe 1850s, it became very powerful. Yes, the Brahmo Samaj in Bengal state, idea of it kind of became a new movement of monotheism, and for the first time he renouncing the caste system. So Brahmo Samaj, they don't believe in the caste system at all, and even the idea that we should free ourselves from all the Hindu scriptures we have, like the Purans. We should free ourselves from them, and focus on the core teachings of monotheism. That's the kind of so as that's why I was saying that a lot of people think that he was greatly influenced by the Abrahamic faith and he lost kind of his track. That's a view you can use in exams as well, I guess, to debate. Yeah. Couple of other things he did as well to pass on his message was he actually started his own local paper in Persian at that time and Bengali. So here some of he did his papers, but the problem was at that time to publish an article you need permission. You need permission from the local government. Yeah, at that time, or the East India Company. And obviously he always fought against that because he thought, like modern, journalists, that that's not fair. We should all have freedom of speech and expression, even at that time. So these are some of the tools he actually used to pass on his message. Anyhow, that's the kind of the brief message of Ram Mohan Roy's life. But the key thing is that he managed to get a couple of things, reforms, sati reform, child marriages, polygamy, caste system, and modern education. These are kind of the key things. Remove all the what do you call nonsensical rituals. So all that was kind of his main effort. And the thing is, because of legal route, he made them into law, and that was a kind of base achievement. Now, finally, in 1830s, he actually had come to Britain um, to meet the government, the imperial government at that time, to increase the royalty of the Mughal emperor. The Mughal emperor must have sent him to UK because at that time he was very educated and articulate in all the languages. When he came here, apparently he fell ill with meningitis, and he's actually passed away in Britain. His memorial is he was actually buried in Bristol. His memorial is still in there in Bristol. So he eventually passed away in Bristol. But in his span of his life from 1774 to say up to 1830, which is 60 something years, his achievements were in many ways great. Yeah, at that time, because India had a lot of issues with some of these key social reforms. That was his main contribution of to Hinduism, or I would say more than Hinduism, more like cultural reform. Hinduism in the sense of the Brahmo Samaj and their beliefs of monotheism. So these are the key takeaways from Ram Mohan Roy's life. So the thing is the notes you get, which will are very, what do you say, very not that big. They're about few pages. Because I mean, we can't write volumes. You can buy whole books of his whole biography. This is very thick. The more you know, the more you can write in exams. But the thing is, you don't get a question bigger than 10 marks. 10 marks is the most you have to write on a question. So for 10 marks, you write about good, maybe 12, 15 sentences. And then you've kind of covered, yeah? So that's the gist behind Ram Mohan Roy's life. So the next two personalities, they are really, truly religious people. That is Dayananda Saraswati and Ramakrishna Paramas. And that kind of we will cover the week next week and the week after, yeah? So yeah, that's it from me, Nitish Bhai. Hopefully gives a brief startup on Ram Mohan Roy's life, yeah? Yeah. That's it from me, Nitish Bhai. I think,
Thank you, Vijay bhai.
yeah.
So really well done, and it went quite into in depth. You captured it in a very concise manner. I'm sure the
Yeah.
subject matter is quite deep, but
Yeah.
with your experience, you managed to condense it into the main bits that we need to know in a short span of time.
Yeah.
I mean, 30
Thank you.
minutes, you've given us a master class on this topic.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Folks, like Vijay Bhai said, if you are going for the exams, two things. You need to know the structure of the exam. So well prepared, be well prepared for it. Number
Yeah.
two, you need to know where you can sit for the exam. So just find out your local centers. Just search online for Cambridge Board Exam Centers. They do special invigilation centers. So for example, when we were in Kenya years back, we did ACCA, and they did a special invigilation center at the British Council Library, British Library there. and they flew in somebody from Nairobi to our town to invigilate the exam. So it's possible in many places around the world, but you just need to know where, and you need to plan ahead in advance, and you need to know by when you need to register for the exam, etc. Remember
Yeah.
ebooks from the Hindu Academy website, and that is me done for now. If there are any questions on this today's section, feel free to let me know. Just wave your hand or let me know in the chat, and I'll bring you on board, and Vijay, if I can assist you. Okay, Vijay, you bamboozled everyone now.
No, it takes time to absorb the information, I think. And if you have a read, and you can Google, there are a lot of videos about him as well. Yeah, so you have a read, and then you can think a bit more. Yeah.
How do they use the code you have given in the chat?
Okay, what do they just go type in Cambridge IGCSE 2055 and the syllabus will come up. That's it. There's nothing more to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you go there, Cambridge IGCSE, type in 2055, and you can download all the material, the paper, how the exam, you know, past papers you can look at, the mark scheme, the possible answers they look for. So everything is there. There's nothing special. Yes.
My favorite strategy for preparation for exams is to make sure you know what's in the syllabus. Number two, what's the structure of the paper, and number three, practice, practice, practice past exams.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
The question, please go ahead.
Nishit, there's a few people who have questions on the chat.
Yogesh, I'll come to you. Anjana is there.
Thanks, Vijay bhai. So basically, he was a reformer. Basically, he did not preach anything. Though he started Brahmo Samaj,
Yeah.
but he did not preach anything, so that which we can refer to.
No,
But
he
there
did.
is
No, he did preach in the Brahmo Samaj was a community, and what happened is if you go to the sabhas they had, the Amitya Sabha, he will get people together, like-minded people, and they'll discuss the ideas, the monotheist ideas, Upanishads, and not focus on other scriptures. But the thing was, he did not for the mass public as such. Yes, it's not a mass movement as such. So in a way, he did little preach, but only in the Upanishads. The religion of India was vast. Images, Durga, all that. He did not focus on any of that. So very much like he was trying to model it on a bit on the Abrahamic face. That's what a lot of people think. Yeah. So yeah. There are some people I know who have even gone worse and they say he's a crypto Christian. I don't know what that means. Yeah. But yeah, so he did preach, but I think his main focus was to get these reforms. Reform and cultural reform was the main force. So boy, he did everything. So I think we can't say he didn't preach as such, but I wouldn't say he's a religious figure as such in the modern sense. Yeah, like a guru or like that. Maybe some people say him as guru, but he was so different in that sense from Bengal is Durga. Yeah. All the Shakti Puja. So this is very different from that. Yeah. So I don't know how, because don't forget, the Upanishads, not anybody touched the Upanishads in those days. Yes, it's not something you do. You just go local village, you do puja, you do Brahmins and all this stuff. Yeah, so it's a big thing at that time. So yeah, so in that sense, he was not a mass. If you look at the same teachings were done by Dayan Saraswati, similar teachings, but much more successful in the sense that Arya Samaj, because he was a religious leader. That's the thing about India that I know, like recently when I was in Gujarat, even this COVID-19 thing, yeah, the government is shouting, wear a mask, wear a mask. And I know, like in my father's Gurukul, when the monk said it, everybody listened. They say, okay, yeah, we have to be the Guru is saying so, yeah. So the thing is, sometimes the message are much more strongly passed, not by reformers, by sadhus or swamis or, sadhgurus, they are much more popular. But I think he did have a sabha, but I wouldn't say it really meant mass like that. It wasn't a mass thing, yeah. That's why he had to use law to get his reforms. He couldn't do it the normal way. That's an interesting point, yeah. Yeah.
And regarding the polygamy, like you mentioned that he was married thrice. So
no. So he was married only once, one separately, because one when he was married at very age 9. I think his first wife must have passed of even in a very very early age, maybe I don't know. It doesn't say, but 12, 13. She died as a child, basically his first wife. Yeah.
Okay.
Second wife he married separately, not together, because he didn't have the first wife. And second wife actually passed away for illness. And then he made the third time, so separately, yeah, he didn't practice that, yeah. But polygamy was popular at that time, mainly because a lot of girls are poor. I tell you why I know this, because I'm reading Tagore stories, yeah, Rabindranath Tagore stories. And there's so many examples. You see that a lot of young girls are married to old Brahmins, right? And they made to look after them in the old age because they don't have money. So there's a lot of these issues that because of poverty, a lot of old men, young women, so they get a chance to feed themselves. So very rampant at that time, and a lot of, especially a lot of rich houses would have 2 or 3 wives, and they're not treated nicely at all. Some of the stories you look from this Tago, they're very, very disturbing, yes, in that time. But I guess that's the time it was, so I really cannot judge. But yeah, so polygamy was an issue at that time as well. So he fought against this, and I think, to be fair, I think Christianity did influence a bit. Yeah, Christianity is very clear.
India's first and only Captain
Good
Cool.
for us. Yeah.
India's first and only.
Okay. I had just muted somebody who had the music on. So Yogesh, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks, Nishish bhai, and thanks, Vijay bhai.
Okay.
Anjana, you had a question?
Yes, just because
Sure.
they had a sati pratha and a childhood marriage,
Yeah.
because of the Mughal Empire was there.
Yeah.
I think that was a reason why
True.
the Kshatriya woman, and they used to do the johar, because otherwise, the Mughal king used to take them away, and so
True.
that was the reason for.
Very true.
If I understand correctly.
Correct. That's very true. So thing was that I think during the Mughal Empire, things were, the later Mughal Empire wasn't that bad. Like Akbar's time, it was still happening, but very little. Problem came much earlier. When the conquest of the Gauris, Alauddin Khilji, the Tamboulin, yes, all these Timur, all these guys were coming. They are the kind of the biggest culprit. They would take a lot of girls away. But I know if you look at the Quran, it's clear that married women are not permissible. There's a rule like that, and they kind of follow that. So you're right. If you get them married early, they will say if you're not married, they would not generally touch them as a rule. Not completely. They will still take them if they really have their mind on it. As a rule, it was the case. So that is very true that they would take a lot of women away. Yeah, in that sense. So the marriage came for that reason. But the thing is, after the early conquest, which lasted maybe 5-6 years, once the Mughal Empire was established, quite a few, and then the East India Company came. It was not necessary anymore. They made it into tradition. A lot of Hindu Brahmins that kind of made a tradition, and kind of as a means of control women. Yes, so that became the problem. So right, so it was a Hinduism, but eventually it became part of the cultural tradition. And just because they used 2 examples, they used the one example of Madri, the second wife of Pandu. They use that as an example. Link it. There's only one out of hundreds of scriptures we have. They pick the one story and say, "Oh, she did it, so it's okay," which is wrong, obviously. And again, as you mentioned, it was mainly a Kshatriya tradition, not the tradition of other kind of caste. Now, in Bengal, said Brahmins were doing it, yes. Although she doesn't get, she'll become impure if her husband passes away. So that was the problem, that he became part of the other communities as well. So you're very right in that sense. Or the Johar was done by. Actually, I went to Chittor. Yes, it's very emotional. I was there. It's almost like I was in tears because it happened 4 times, not once, 4 times, and the entire village, entire city was wiped off. And the king just left because nobody to pay taxes. So Mughals ruled it. So what do we do now? There's nobody left. So what's the point of ruling a country with kingdom with nobody left? Anyway, so you're right. It's so very true in that sense. Yeah, that was a big reason why it happened. But then it was entrenched, and that was the problem. How do you take it out when it becomes deeply rooted, which is what Ramon Roy and Dan Saraswati did the same thing as well. But we will cover him next week. But we have very valid point. Agree.
And he was Hindu, so why was he buried in Bristol? I mean,
okay, good point. So the thing is, there are some Hindus who actually buried. It's very popular. I think there's a belief that we should always cremate, which is true. Hinduism say cremate because, of course, the idea is that the body has no value. But there have been examples of burial as well. The Rani of Jhansi was buried because the people wanted to keep a shrine of her. And for Ramon Roy, I have no idea why, but I think in Bristol, I guess maybe there was not allowed or something. I don't know at that time in 1830s to cremate. I'm not sure, but he was kind of silently buried there. There's a memorial there. But I think maybe because of legal reasons or what something, I'm not sure for that, but we'll have to check that out. Yeah, but a valid point. But there have been burials though of a lot of Hindu people. It's not unusual. It's unusual, but they are happening. Yes, like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So Yogesh Bhai, thank you for sharing that link. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share the link from Cambridge Assessment International Education, the Cambridge Board. That is the link in the chat now for everybody. I'm losing track a little bit of who is asking questions or wants to ask questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand or just unmute yourself. Tushar Bhai, good to see you as always. Hope you're well. And if anybody wants to ask a question, please feel free to do so now. Okay, looks like things are trundling along nicely and we don't have any questions. So Vijay Bhai, if we want to close the session.
Yeah, all I can say is that we have covered the two boring personalities. The two interesting personalities will come next 2 weeks. They are much more interesting than these two boring ones. That's my view anyway. So hopefully it'll be more fun next 2 weeks. And I hope Dilip Bhai is up to speed as well. And take over. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
See
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Vijay Bhai, Nishit Bhai. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namaste. Thank you.